This movie begins with the chimney sweeper, Fire, going about his job. Climbing various houses doesn't seem to be a Herculean task for him. He's been doing it for years now and enjoys it too. Avdelings later, a senior colleague sits opposite Fire and shares his dream. In the dream, a message was conveyed to him about how humans have it in them to see things from a perspective of beauty, carrying out just acts and steering clear of evil. When Fire asks him how he felt in the dream, he confirms he has a bit of fear. The message wasn't one to make him scared, but dreams just have a way of doing things that defy the norm, and this terrifies him. In the beginning, he thought it was God, or some supernatural being passing a message to him. Alas, it was David Bowie. He has no special likeness for David Bowie, so this makes him wonder why he's dreaming of him. He goes on to narrate the remainder of the dream, how David Bowie first looked at him through the mirror, and when their eyes locked, he saw compassion in David's eyes. He noticed something else. David Bowie looked at him like he was a woman. It felt like a transmission of sexual tension from David Bowie to him. Even the casual pleasantries sounded quite mushy, for men. Avdelingsleder goes on to explain that he's never been attracted to men. Fire then tells him that sexual feelings can trickle in at any point in one's life. Fire then makes a confession. He slept with a man the previous day. The man was a client whose chimney they swept. When alone with him, the man asked him if he wanted to have sex with him. It was a question he wasn't expecting, so he burst out laughing. Not gay, he politely declined and saw himself out. Halfway from the house, the man's offer kept ringing in his head. The man had looked at him lustfully. He hadn't experienced such an intentional look in a long time. He then decides to give it a try, simply because he felt drawn to the man at that moment. Avdelingsleder then asks him if he enjoyed it, and he concurs. He says he wasn't scared of STI because the man used a condom. Avdelingsleder confirms that Fire is now gay, but he politely disagrees. Even though he enjoyed it and felt really wanted by someone, it's not an act he'll indulge in again. His wife was the first person he told about the incident. He confirms that his wife wasn't mad at him. She only wanted to know two things: why he did it, and if it was his first. Well, it was his first. And for why he did it, he has no idea. Avdelingsleder brings it to his notice that he has cheated on his wife, but he argues. He says it was just sex, and it doesn't count as cheating. He opines that it can be termed cheating when he starts a relationship with someone else. Still worried about his sexuality, Avdelingsleder claims that he's never been rigid about homosexuality, but he's not attracted to men. The look on his face is still that of bewilderment. He doesn't believe his friend would indulge in what he just revealed. The discussion changes as Avdelingsleder mentions that he's got an appointment with a voice trainer. They're preparing for a concert, and he has to keep himself fit for it. While Fire doesn't ordinarily love music, he promises to attend the concert. That day, Fire goes home to meet his wife, Reservoir, seated loosely on an armchair. After greetings, she informs him of their son's weird activities in school. Now, on to what bothers her. Reservoir hasn't been able to erase the visual images of her husband with another man. This has kept her wondering if she's still loved by him. It's worse for her as she can't ascertain why her husband would let another man sleep with him. For her, it's cheating, but he argues that he doesn't see it that way. She begins crying while her husband pats her hair, telling her not to see things the way they aren't. He assures her that his love for her hasn't diminished. Fire's audacity continues. He reiterates that he was turned on by how lustfully the man looked at him. It's the reason he did it. His wife still can't make sense of it. She's more worried that her husband thinks it's normal that he did it. She stands up and leaves the sitting room, disgusted. Much later, Reservoir watches her husband use a towel on himself, and then she begins crying. Tears that could mean defeat, losing her husband to homosexuality. Avdelingsleder and his son are having a chat while they are waiting for an appointment. His son talks to him about starting a YouTube channel since his grades aren't very encouraging. He's taking a cue from his classmate Alice, who has a YouTube channel and is almost the next big thing. Avdelingsleder encourages his son, telling him he has a lot of time to turn his academic fortune around. It's evening, and Revisor is still having a hard time processing Fire's revelation. She's still in pain. Not knowing the exact things Fire is now capable of breaks her. They argue whether Fire's act is considered cheating. Revisor makes her point, but Fire tries to counter it. Revisor then asks Fire to describe the encounter. Fire declines, but Revisor makes him talk. Fire goes on to explain how the man kissed him and bent him over. Notably, he also mentions that the man was very charming and very friendly. Fire says he's done talking about it, and then steps out of the room. Avdelingsleder now has an audience with Sangpedagogue, a voice trainer. She diagnoses Avdelingsleder and tells him of possible causes. Sang Pedagogue almost bores them with her stories of a certain woman, before letting Avdelingsleiter and his son leave. Fire and Revisor take the kid to do some gardening. While Fire talks about ideas for the garden, Revisor can't seem to take her mind off Fire's sexual exploration. She asks Fire what if it was her who had sex with someone else. Well, she's done that with her ex before marriage. She claimed it was just sex then, and it helped her decide to be with Fire. Fire wonders why she's not cool with him claiming that his encounter is just sex too. For Revisor, marriage changes everything. Deciding to marry is deciding to stay true to one partner, no matter whose ex is gored. Revisor wonders what changed in her thinking pattern as regards sex being just physical. Avdelingsleiter and his wife, Socionome, are conversing in their room. Avdelingsleiter's voice isn't as bad as he portrays. Socionome suggests he's disturbed, but he disagrees. Avdelingsleiter's countenance even suggests it. That night, Fire and Revisor are retiring to their bed. Fire wants to take off his underwear when Revisor asks him to keep it on, as if she's lost interest in seeing Fire's nudity. Fire knows that Revisor is still mad at him. He apologizes again and promises not to put her through such pain again. Revisor goes on to explain how hurt she really feels. She claims it's hard to be on that side of the coin. Revisor is overwhelmed. She feels so lost and can't see them scaling through this. She thinks this might lead to a breakup or something of that sort. This isn't the reaction Fire expected when he innocently told her about the situation. Fire's attempt to touch and pacify her by planting a kiss on her cheek is rejected. She feels irritated by Fire's romantic gestures. Revisor then decides to leave the room. Sleeping in the same bed with a man who just cheated won't work for her. Avdelingsleiter wakes up from another uncomfortable dream. Socionome inquires about it, but before Avdelingsleiter mutters any word, she notices his skin peeling off. The discussion changes from his dreams to him meeting a doctor. Fire's family is falling apart. Revisor is stepping out, so she informs Fire of her desire to talk to someone about her confused state. Fire wishes she could do all the talking with him, but she disagrees. She'll go talk with Hana. Revisor notes that Fire must have been in a good mood that day, hence his on-the-spot decision. She steps out but walks back in after a few seconds to kiss him on the lips. When she's done, she wonders aloud why Fire plainly does stupid things. Fire is at work and feels slightly dizzy. He manages to climb a roof but still feels dizzy, so he calls Avdelingsleiter to come assist him. With both of them now sitting on the rooftop, Fire shares how Reservoir has been towards him. He now regrets sharing his escapade with her, even though in his books, not sharing would mean cheating. Avdelingsleiter goes on to share his dream. Yet again, he met with David Bowie. This time, everyone in the room looked at him as if he were a woman. David Bowie was excited to see him, as much as he too was excited to see the singer. David Bowie had a moment with him, and he woke up feeling uncomfortable. Fire retorts that the moment must have been nice, and Avdelingsleiter wonders why Fire gets so free with these things. They go back to talking about Fire's situation. Avdelingsleiter wonders what he expected from Revisor after such a dark revelation. He wishes that Fire resolves his issue on time to avoid further drama. As Fire goes about his day, he sees Reservoir from afar chatting with her friends. His mind begins wandering, imagining what the discussion might be. His wife's mental state isn't great, and she might end up revealing his mistake of an adventure to her friends. Fire then spends the remainder of the day reminiscing at the park. Avdelingsleiter takes his son, Klaus, to the hospital to get his sprained arm checked. While waiting for the doctor, Klaus talks about Alice, the girl motivating him to start his YouTube channel. Alice and Klaus have become so fond of each other that Alice talks to Klaus about her period. The doctor bandages Klaus's hand and advises them on the next step to take. Klaus starts to talk about Alice's period pains. The doctor begins enlightening Klaus on what to possibly tell Alice. The doctor goes on to talk about certain things Avdelingsleiter wishes she didn't say to his son's hearing. Avdelingsleiter even asks her if she has any kids, and she confirms that she does. The doctor is done, and they're about to leave when Klaus reminds his dad of his peeling skin. Avdelingsleiter would rather dodge getting diagnosed, but the doctor persuades him to get checked. He gets checked, and the doctor affirms that he's fine. He just needs to moisturize often and avoid getting a tattoo. Avdelingsleiter mentions he has no plans of getting a tattoo. Klaus does, and he mentions it. The doctor then goes on to dissuade him from getting inked. The doctor has a lot of stories to share, and she offers to share one with them. The essence of the story is simply to let Klaus know that tattoos can be a source of regret much later in one's life. On their way out, Klaus mentions that he still wants a tattoo. At home, Fire meets Revisor, jotting things down. He inquires about her meeting with Hana, and she shares, if Hana were in Revisor's shoes, she'd have probably filed for a divorce. Revisor promises that isn't the case with her though. Hannah's friend, who was with them, advises that Revisor works on her mind. He also advises that she write down her thoughts, as it might help her. Revisor has written everything Fire told her happened in the client's house. Fire doesn't know how to feel about this. Feeling downcast, he begins crying. Revisor feels his pain too and gives him a shoulder to cry on. It's morning, and Avdelingsleder feels the need to share his dreams with Socionom. He does, and Socionom is confused. Avdelingsleder confesses that he was uncomfortable at the first and second instances, but now he's beginning to take an interest in the dream. The way David Bowie looks at him like he's a woman very much interests him. Socionom is mystified. She finds it hard to believe that her husband would get comfortable with a man lusting after him, as if he were a woman. The fact that Avdelingsleder finds some sort of emancipatory feeling from it scares her. Socionom encourages Avdelingsleder to rather see it as God looking at him with compassion. At the poolside, Avdelingsleder still worries that Fire is gay. Fire disagrees and further claims that a man can sleep with another man without being gay. Fire and Reservoir prepare to go for Avdelingsleder's concert. Before leaving, Fire encourages Revisor to rekindle her love for him. He urges that she sees him as loving and wouldn't dare do anything to make her feel different. Revisor promises to try before they step out. Fire is at the concert with Revisor and their kids. The concert begins and ends as a huge success in everyone's book. On their way, Fire and Revisor walk on with hands locked together, a sign of commitment to each other.